Hi, I am Fabian Andre, and this is CodeDoc by Feel It. In this session, we are going to create our first application with .NET C Sharp. To get started, you will need at least 8 GB of RAM installed on your computer. You will also need an IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. If you are on Windows and would like to know how much RAM or memory you have installed, right-click on the taskbar and start Task Manager. On the Performance tab, you should see how much memory you have. As you can see on my Windows 11 setup, I have 8 GB of RAM installed, of which 7.8 GB is usable. The rest is system reserved. The IDE of choice is Visual Studio 2022 or later. This is produced by Microsoft and is supported on Windows and Mac. You will also need the .NET Framework and .NET SDK. This comes with Visual Studio. In this illustration, we will only focus on the Windows version, but the inner workings are the same with the Mac. Alright, now I'm ready to download Visual Studio 2022. So I'll navigate to Visual Studio Microsoft.com, which I have ready, and look for Visual Studio for Windows. Visual Studio is, as mentioned, an IDE. In simple terms, an IDE is a development tool that allows you at the very least to write, build, and deploy your code. Visual Studio comes in different flavors. You have the free community version if you are eligible, the professional version for small businesses, and the enterprise version. You also have the Team Explorer version, but it's not meant for developers, so I will refrain from commenting further on that. For illustration purposes, I'll just go ahead and download the free community version. Alright, now we got a hold on the installer. It's just a matter of running it and installing the application. So we execute the setup file and then press on continue. That should download the installer and verify that it's okay and install eventually. Alright, now we met with this window where we basically select what we need to have installed. I'll leave it to you to decide what you install here depending on your requirements, but I prefer to have ASP.NET and web development installed. Also desktop development. Well, that's basically it. And then I'll navigate to maybe, no, that will do it for now. Then we look at individual components. We make sure that the .NET 6 and 7 runtimes are installed. The Net Framework SDK, we might as well have the 481 targeting pack, the 481 SDK, just for to be sure. We bring that in as well. And that should be it. Oh yeah, we might also, for my requirements, we might also have Git for Windows. Yeah, I think that's it. For you, it might or may not differ from what you see here. But the most important is that you have the SDKs installed. So we go ahead and install. This will probably take some time, so I'll go ahead and pause the video for now and get back when we are done installing. And we are back. We're done installing. So the next step would naturally be to launch the application. You just go ahead and do it right now. All right, we're back. We skip logging in for now. We select the theme. Normally, I would choose the dark theme, but for illustration purposes, we'll go ahead and select the light one and start Visual Studio. This is what you would normally see when you start Visual Studio with some options. I will opt to continue without code. Once inside, go to File, New Project. Then I select the .NET Framework console application and click on Next. I verify the location of my project, which looks okay. I could also opt to browse for a new location, but I'm not going to do that. I will then see if this project name is okay, which is not. So I'll just change it to something more intuitive, like for example, CodeDoc, um, Hello World. Well, we would like to have Hello World in Pascal case. All right, and we have the suffix and FW, which stands for Net Framework. We change the framework to 4.8.1 and we make sure the solution is placed in the same directory as the project. And we create. All right, here you have a project on the right. Information about it at least. We right click on it and we open its location on the file system. Here's the project file, the CS project file, and the solution file also as well, and the program CS file and the app config. We open the project file and we'll notice that it's nothing more than a text file with information, more accurately, an XML file. It's not required to remember any of the things that you see here because it's the old way of doing things. But it's important to notice the difference because the way things are done now differ from the way they were done before. So we just close everything and we start the application. I don't really expect much to happen with the application because it has an empty method, but it's important to notice what happens when you press on start is that it tries to build the application, and once it's seated, which it did just now, it will start the console. But the console started and then closed again. And the reason is simple. The application is not instructed to do anything. So we add something, hello world, console write down hello world and console dot read key. The read key will ensure that the application doesn't close until you have inputted something. So we're good to go. But first, I would like to create a new project, but this time, just like before, a new console application, but this time we select a version that can run on .NET, Linux, and Mac OS, basically a cross-platform. We went through this earlier. We want to change the project name, so we go ahead and change the project name to something more useful. CodeDoc, Hello World, and with the suffix NE T for .NET. And instead of creating a new solution, we'll just add to solution and we press next. For the framework here, we have the option to select either the .NET 6.0 or the .NET 7.0. We go with .NET 7.0 and choose not to use top level statements. We will go through what that is in a moment, but for now, we opt to not use it and we create. So we have a second project in order without top level statements. This is a .NET 7 project. We go ahead and add a new project, but this time we select the add new project option from the solution. And we go through the same process we did earlier, but notice this time we don't get an option to add to solution because it's a given. We name it and we have the suffix .NET TLS, which stands for top level statements. And we remove that option, basically adding the option for top level statements. And here we go. We start off by looking at our top level statement project and basically visit this link. And here you see that the link where it brings us. We get information on this page. Feel free to do so, to click on that link. We get information about the new format, and there's also information about top level statements. And you can see here there's a difference between the one on the top. It's how things are done with the top level statement included, and how things look like when we don't include them. Basically the old way of doing things, with the includes, the namespace, the program class, and the method. It's stated further down there that you basically have two options to work with tutorials that haven't been updated to use .NET 6 or more or higher templates. You can use a new program style, adding new top level statement as you add features, or you can convert the new program style to older style with a program class and the main method. Basically how things were done before. I'm not going to give you a recommendation on how things should be done. This is a top level statement enabled program CS class or file, and this is how things were done before. I'm just going to put them side by side. On the left, the TLS top level statement enabled, and on the right, the Net Framework project. Let me go as well and open the .NET and put them in between. There we go. Let me adjust a little bit here. As you can see, on the right is what we started off with. I added the read key because the console automatically closes if there's nothing in the method body. The current startup project is this, and we can set it by right clicking and set as startup project. This is the .NET 7, as you can see on the target framework. I'm going to disable the nullable property here, which allows us to have things as they were before .NET 6. More on that later. I'm going to go ahead and start the startup project through Visual Studio by clicking right here. And what happens is that the console, just as previously, starts after building the project. And you see, there we go, hello world. And to close it, I just have to press a key or on the keyboard or press the X on the console window. So we move forward with the .NET version without TLS enabled, which shows us a little bit more on the program CS file. But before we do anything more, I would like to save the solution as something else than the one we originally created. We just click on the solution and choose Save As on the File menu, and we navigate outside of the current solution folder, which was the Net Framework folder, and we try to save it as a CodeDoc Hello World. It won't let me save right now because, well, I'm missing the SLN extension, so I'm going to go ahead and write it and hit save. Great, now we're ready to do more stuff on our program CS file. The next thing we're going to do is open the current location of our project. Then go to bin debug net 7.0 and locate basically the executables of our application. We want to open a PowerShell window here. We just press Shift and right click on Windows and open PowerShell window. And then we want to run the application that has been built. I'll make use of the .NET runtime by writing .NET and then tab, and I get the DLL and press enter. And there you go, you have Hello World. So I can basically have the same result as I would get through Visual Studio by running the executable directly. And this is what we will continue doing. The PowerShell and Visual Studio are now set side by side while I continue extending the application. The first thing we want to do is introduce a variable called message, where we will insert a hello world in. So we write string message equals hello world. And then we just move the message variable inside the console write line. We build the project and wait for it to succeed. There we go. And once done, we go to our PowerShell and run the application again. There we go. We still have hello world, so nothing has changed, which is good news. The next thing we want to do is extend our message string. So we're going to write welcome to CodeDoc. Then we build the project. that succeeded. You could also opt to build the product to the build menu and selecting build called hello world net and have the same result. So now we run the application through our PowerShell, and there we have it. Hello world, welcome to CodeDoc. There are quite a few ways to manipulate the string. Uh, we have basically hard coded our message into the message variable, but we could use different ways of inserting parts of or an entire message inside a string. And we're going to do just that. We could first start by using the string format, string.format, and we enclose it. Then we replace CodeDoc with opening and closing brackets and a zero inside it. The zero is a placeholder for the string that needs to be inserted. The string we want to insert it lies in args dot first. We start with first. Basically, we will take in an argument, which is basically something we insert when we run the program. And the first argument we provide will go inside this string format. So we build the application and we try to run it. Now, pay close attention, we get an exception. This was intentional. The reason we get an exception is because we have run the program without providing any arguments. So when we use the first method, extension method, we get an exception if there are no elements inside the args variable. And there wouldn't be any elements if we don't provide anything. So now let's, for the sake of proving this fact, provide an argument. So we have quotes and we write CodeDoc and we run the application and it works. Now, if we were to remove CodeDoc from as an argument and run the application, it will give an exception as we first encountered. There's another way of going by with this. This is changing the first extension method to first or default. So we build the application, and while it's building, because I have issues seeing everything right now, please allow me to change the layout a little bit. Yeah, with that done, we go ahead and run the program without arguments. And press enter. There we get hello world, welcome to blank, without any exceptions. And if we run the application now with CodeDoc as an argument, press enter, it should, and it does, give us, well, hello world, welcome to CodeDoc. So basically, first the default allows us to default to the value of string, the default value of string, which is null. Now let's move on. We comment this variable out for now, string message, and then we copy what we previously read. We could have done that first, but let's do this afterwards. And we paste it. Now instead of using string format, we will opt for the plus operator. So we first go ahead and remove the brackets and the exclamation point. Now we remove the comma and add a plus operator. Now we add the args. First the default, remove the and parenthesis, and we add the plus operator and the exclamation point. Now we go ahead and build this. Succeeded. And we run the application. As we see, we still get hello world, welcome to CodeDoc. Nothing's changed, which is nice. Now let's comment out the solution we just displayed. And let's now paste it again and do a few changes. Now instead of using the plus operator, we want to basically use string interpolation. That's what it's called. And that is basically starting the string with a dollar sign and enclosing any variables with brackets. So we go ahead and enclose args first of default with brackets, and that's it. We basically have replicated the first and second solution with less code. So let's build and run. Build succeeded. And run. Welcome to CodeDoc. Now, there will probably be use cases for all of these three solutions, but there is definitely going to be one solution you will use more extensively than others. Which one it is, I'll leave that entirely up to you. But I can tell you that I mostly use string interpolation for obvious reasons. But you can opt to use what you feel like using or whatever is easier for you. So let's do a small recap. We went through that an IDE allows you to write, build, and deploy your app. An IDE such as Visual Studio, as you saw, does just that, at the very least. Writing is what we do in the text editor. Building is what we do when we convert what we do on the text editor to machine readable code. And deploying is basically making the application eligible for an operative system like Windows or Mac OS. Strings can either be hard coded, like we started off with, used with string format, concatenate with the plus operator, or interpolated with the dollar sign. I believe that concludes our video. Feel free to subscribe and click the like button, and welcome to our next video. Thank you very much.